Thanks, Jeff. I'm talking a little early because I have to do 3 more things in Northern Ohio after this, so I'm going to be on the road. Thank you for having me again this year. I was here 2 years ago, and I've had the chance, as many of you know, to be your Attorney General in between times. And I have enjoyed the work in that office tremendously, and some of it is broad, important work that will last for generations, and some of it is immediate work that matters in the here and now. On the broader front was the McDonald case, the NRA versus City of Chicago case that the U.S. Supreme Court, as I'm sure most of you, if not all of you know, was hearing and deciding this past term, and was decided ultimately in June. And the issue in that case was whether the Supreme Court's decision in the Heller case, which had held very specifically that the Second Amendment is not just a right having to do with organizing a militia, but instead is an individual right that each of us possess to bear arms and all of the surrounding privileges and rights that go with that. That was a case involving the District of Columbia, so it applied against the federal government and the Congress, but the question was whether that was going to apply against all the state and local governments around the country. We thought that was a pretty straightforward question. We thought that, as with most everything else in the Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment clearly, as an individual right, should apply against state and local governments. So the state of Texas and I got together and we wrote a brief in that case to the United States Supreme Court, ended up being joined by more than 30 states, in which we said that this should be incorporated, this is the right reading of the Constitution, and it's consistent with what you have now said for the first time ever, that this is in fact an individual right. And we also went on and talked a little more about the background of that to help the court understand the background, which is that the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution doesn't just spring out of the air. It wasn't just dreamed up by one of the founding fathers. It was recognizing rights that are inherent and that predate any government and certainly predate the Constitution of the United States. The right to self-preservation, the right to defend yourself, the right to arm yourself and to be able to protect and look after yourself, that's fundamental to any individual person. A God-given right, really a natural right that precedes our government. And so that's what we laid out. And we also laid out how in the founding era, how important it was to the colonists to be able to maintain their guns when the British government was becoming more and more oppressive to the colonists. And that was really a big part of what made the American Revolution successful. So that was the background we explained to the court. They ultimately did agree with that, and they rendered what really is a ruling that will ring down through the generations now in that case, and we were proud to be a part of that. At the nitty-gritty level are all the things we do every day. I mean, I was faced with the decision when I first took office about our agents who deal with Medicaid fraud. They had been allowed to be armed by a previous Attorney General, and then my predecessor had said they took their guns away and said they should not be armed, even though they've trained and even though they're really law enforcement. And I had to decide whether I was going to allow them to be armed again. I decided that they should be armed again. They have been armed during my tenure as Attorney General. It's been no problem. People who bear arms tend to be very responsible citizens, and that's true of the ones who work in my office as well as all of you. We also had the issue with the State House rally just a couple months ago that some of you know about, which was that there was a lot of uneasiness about open carry on the State House grounds, and the Capitol Square Review and Advisory Board, you can read bureaucracy when I say that, they were very unhappy and resistant about this, and in the end, after having no real leg to stand on and denying a permit, they decided at the last minute they were going to require some giant insurance policy to have to be obtained for people to be able to have a rally on the State House grounds. And I spoke directly to President Finan of that board and said, look, you don't require this of other groups. Why would you be requiring this here? he said, you know, we're concerned about this rally, we're concerned about what might happen. He says, are you willing to take responsibility? And I said, yes, I am willing to take responsibility. And they did not require that, and they did allow the permit. We had a nice rally that day. It was good weather, just like it is today. Those are ways where there are issues that come up, and it makes a difference who's in the office and what their attitude is. Sometimes there are things that I can't control. Somebody was talking to me a little earlier about local police, local sheriffs around the state who get jittery sometimes, and they'll arrest people or jump up or say that you're, you know, creating a public disturbance or something when you really aren't, but just to deal with the situation. Those people, of course, they don't report to me. I'm not their boss. They will be the first to tell you that. You know, all I can do with them is go out, inform them, let them know. Open carry is the law of Ohio. It has been since we were a state. It's always been the case. There's references to it in older Ohio Supreme Court decisions that are still perfectly valid, and we will continue to do that when we have the opportunity. On concealed carry, as you know, that legislation has been a success. There have not been problems. It allows people to protect themselves in everyday situations around the state. We actually should have access to more locations rather than less on that, but certainly, you know, people had all kinds of concerns when that started, but the data now and the experience we've had has shown very different reality. So in all these ways, these are ways that I'm enjoying working with you. Oh, one other big one I should mention is, and actually I'm ironically on my way to Cleveland after this, the City of Cleveland has local ordinances that are very restrictive on the right to bear arms. And there's a state law that clashes with those ordinances. We have been defending the state law, trying to overturn those ordinances during my entire time in office, and now there's a case in front of the Ohio Supreme Court that we've just briefed that we'll be arguing this fall, in which we're going to be arguing that those local ordinances are invalid. And frankly, now there'll be a decent argument that maybe the McDonald decision should weigh in that as well. That would be yet another reason why those are invalid. So there's lots of issues. Many of these issues, unfortunately, become legal issues. They go into the courts. That means the Attorney General often is involved. I'm always open to listen to you and your members and your peers and colleagues around the state. If you have questions, or if you want guidance, or you want us to talk to someone, again, understanding I'm not king of the world, but you know, Attorney General, and we have a lot of say over how people should read Ohio law. We're always happy to try to assist. And some of you know people like John Fulkerson and Sean Cully who work in my office, and you can always approach them or me. So thanks very much for having me today. I look forward to continuing to work with you. I am on the ballot this fall. I'm trying to get 4 more years as Attorney General. There are other people running, some of whom don't really have your interests in mind, even though they're kind of pretending to right now. I won't go into detail on that. I think most of you know what I'm talking about. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, Rich has got to leave. I believe you said that, right? I'm not shoving you out the door. You're welcome to stay. But I did want to announce while he's still here, you are going to be our endorsed candidate for the election this year.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I'd like to give you a little token to take back with you. Very good. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out today. Oh, well, what's the next date we're going to get reciprocity then? I don't know if I want to put you in.
You know, well, we've had a couple in the last 3 or 4 months. We've been trying to work hard on Georgia, which I know is a big bone of contention for people, because if we could get Georgia, that would complete the whole corridor down from Ohio to Florida. We've been working with them. I've got John Fulkerson working with them. The problem is that Ohio law requires similar provisions in the other states' law, and Georgia doesn't have any training at all. I mean, we don't need much training, but the law seems to require some training. So we talked to them, and my suggestion was talk to them about whether they would recognize our permits, which is all I'm needing right now, because we have everything they have and more, right? And tell them we'll recognize their permits. As long as anybody has any kind of training, then we would recognize their permits. The latest word I had, and there may be a change in the Attorney General's office down there, was that that wasn't going to work for them. So what we're likely to have to do is go to the legislature and get that similarly situated provision changed. But we will continue to work to add more states on the reciprocity because we want your concealed carry permit here to be as muscular as can be, and you should be able to go to other states in the Union and use it there. And similarly, you know, you have friends and others that you invite here, they ought to be able to use their permit here. That's what we're working toward.
Okay. Thank you very much.